Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making an adorable off-the-shoulder top. With this make, I wanted something that read spring and summer, so we kept things petite, from the off-the-shoulder design to the itty-bitty sleeves. This one's for those who want to show off and show out. Speaking of, if you're looking to show off your crochet, you've stumbled upon the best place to find a pattern. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 300 grams of yarn. That's 655 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and 6 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us a quick and easy meal you like to make when you're too tired to cook. Mine's kind of a cheat. It is ramen, but it's ramen with the fixins. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and trinity stitch. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5 millimeter hook and start off by making an even number chain the height that we'd like for our waistband to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do our following double crochet row. Block off that last chain and do a chain 3. There's 1, 2, 3. That chain 3 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then yarn over, preparing for a double crochet, and insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook. So bring it down, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's our first double crochet. Once more, yarn over. Into that next chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Continue with 1 double crochet into every chain. Now that we've made our way down with our double crochets, our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row. So chain 1 and flip our work. Starting with the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert our hook into that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. Then yarn over and gently pull through both loops on our hook. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, insert, yarn over, gently pull through both. We're going to continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, remembering not to tug too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row will be way too tight to work into. We made our way down with our row 2. Now from here it's going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows, all within the back loops. So start with a chain 3, flip our work, then put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, finding the last stitch from our previous row, insert our hook in through that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and continue with 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and continue to repeat these 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases until we have a portion that can stretch around the widest part of our bust. And I'll meet you back right after a double crochet row. So we are back. I have just completed the entirety of my waistband. I have a total of 83 rows, and this width is roughly 23 inches or 38 centimeters that is unstretched. Now we are going to need to connect the corners together and single crochet along the edge all at the same time. So getting that started. We are going to lay our band down flat, making sure that the ribbing that we have, so the front of our band, is faced away from us or downwards, so we're looking along the inside. Our hook is going to be on the right side, Then what we're going to do, and just as a really quick tip, it may slant like this. That's completely normal. It'll all even out once when it's seamed. We're going to take the left side and bring that down towards us, forming a point. And then we're going to do the same thing with the right side, making sure that the corner that the hook is in is along the bottom. Then what we're going to do from here is single crochet, working towards the right first because we want to show the ribbing and also the front of the single crochets. So what we're all going to do from here is flip our work upside down so that the point is then faced away from us. And now that the point is faced away from us, we're now going to be working towards the left because remember we do want to show the front of the single crochets. So we're going to start by inserting our hook into our working yarn. I just want it to adjust, and into the point of our back panel as well. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. Then what we're all going to do from here is put 2 single crochets into every side double crochet row, but 1 single crochet into every stitch since we are working along the edge of the other side of our band. So let's do that together. So working into our first side double crochet row right over here, I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop, then find the first stitch within the back panel. This is my first stitch right here, and insert starting with 1 single crochet. And since we are at the corner, we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into that first stitch. That stitch marker is going to be the first half of this point. The other half is going to be on the other side once we make our way all the way around. Then into that same side row, insert your hook in through that top loop again. Then into that next available stitch into the edge of our back panel, insert with a single crochet. Now we are going to be skipping over our side slip stitch rows, so doing this again. Into our next side double crochet, find that top loop, find that next available stitch within the back panel, insert with 1 single, then into that same side double crochet row, insert in through that same top loop, then finding that next available stitch into the back panel, insert with a single crochet. Now we're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches within the back panel to work into, and then I'll meet you back. Now we have just finished up single crocheting within both the front and the back panel. Everything is nice and connected. Then from here we're going to continue with 2 single crochets into every side double, skipping over every side slip stitch row. Then once we make our way all the way around, we do need to connect this top band to the bottom. So a really quick tip just so that we know where to stop, since we all should have made an even number of stitches, the amount of side rows that were worked into should be half the amount of stitches. So as an example, I made a total of 10 chains, so that should be 5 double crochet rows. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is where I ended. So counting from the bottom half of our band, I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 side rows, and then I'll meet you back once we reach that side row so that we can seam the front to the back of our panel together. But I would like to insert my stitch marker into that side row just so I know where to stop. So from here, just continue with 2 single crochets into every side double crochet row, remembering that we are skipping our side slip stitch rows, and then I'll meet you back to connect all this together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our single crochet row, and we have reached our stitch marker side row. Now from here, we're going to connect the front of our band to the back of our band. And just as a really quick tip, the side row that we insert our stitch marker into may be a little bit wider than the amount of chains that we made, but that's completely fine. It'll all even out just like how the beginning of this did. So this is going to be pretty much the same idea as the beginning of this row. So we're going to start by inserting your hook into that first stitch into the front, then into that side row with our stitch marker into it. Just find that top loop. I'm going to take that stitch marker out for now because we don't need it anymore. And then single crochet everything together. Then within the front, find that next available stitch into the front, into that same side row within the back with a single crochet. Let's just do one more set together. Into that next stitch into the front, insert, next side row within the back, insert, then next stitch within the front, same side row within the back with a single crochet. And we're going to continue doing this until we're worked all the way down and into our last side row. So now that we have completed this single crochet row, I'm going to insert my stitch marker into that last stitch and do a chain up of 1 and cut. And these should be our 2 middle stitches. Now just as a really quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So go ahead and try this on, making sure that it can fit over our shoulders because we do need to put this on, but also right underneath our bust. If it's a little bit too wide, we do some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, we use some stitches with a tighter grip. Now we can all get started on separating the front and back panel, and then we can get started with the front panel. We are now ready to separate the front and back panel, so that's going to be fairly simple. We're going to start by taking the amount of single crochets that we have for that single crochet row that we just did. We should all end on an even number of stitches. Now I had a total of 84 stitches. I'm going to cut that 84 in half, so that's 42 for me. Then I'm going to cut that half in half as well. So half of 42 is 21. Then from my stitch marker point in one direction, I counted out 21 stitches, which is my half, and inserted my stitch marker into that stitch and into the stitch right after that, because this stitch closest to the point is for the front panel. The following stitch closest to the back is for the back panel. Then I did the same thing on both sides. Then once we have that, just double check, make sure that we have the same amount of stitches from our front panel stitch marker to our front panel stitch marker, then from our back panel stitch marker around to our back panel stitch marker. It should be the same since everyone had an even number of stitches, but once we have those into place, we can get started with our front panel. So start by inserting your 6 now millimeter hook into the right stitch marker stitch that's nearest to the point of our waistband. Making sure that the point is faced away from us, we're now going to make an odd number chain that reaches the top of our underarm. So I'm going to start by making a chain 41, and that's just about 10 inches or 25 centimeters. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first trinity stitch. Now the first one is going to be done just a little bit differently than the rest of them. So getting that started, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, start with a single crochet. So into that second chain, insert, pull through for 2 loops, then yarn over, pull through 2. Then to do our trinity stitch, we all need to pull up a total of 4 loops. So starting with that chain that our single crochet is worked into, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull up a loop for 2 loops on our hook. Then into that following chain, we're going to insert, pull up a loop for 3. Then into that following chain, we are going to insert, pull up a loop for 4. Then once we have that, we're going to yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. And we want to make sure that we're not using too tight of a grip, otherwise the falling row can be a little too tight to work into. But once we pull through all 4, we're going to complete this first trinity stitch with a chain 1. Now the second trinity stitch and the rest of them are going to be done the way that we're about to do it. So getting that started, we're going to insert our hook into the last chain that our previous trinity stitch was worked into. So it will be occupied. This is mine. Going to insert my hook, pull through. For 2 loops on our hook, we still want to pull up 4 loops. So into that following chain, insert, pull through for 3. Into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, gently pull through all 4 and chain 1. Now it's going to be this trinity stitch until we have 4 chains left. So let's do this one once more. Into the last chain that our previous trinity stitch is worked into, we're going to insert, pull through for 2 loops. Into that following chain, insert, pull through for 3. Into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4. When we have these 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and to complete this trinity stitch, chain 1. Continue on doing this trinity stitch until we all have 4 chains left. So we've made our way down and we all have 4 chains left. Now we're going to do our last trinity stitch combined with a decrease of 2 half double crochets because we are working up towards the point. So what we're going to do is start off our next trinity stitch per usual. So into the last stitch that our previous trinity stitch was worked into, pull up a loop for 2. Into that following chain, pull up a loop for 3, following chain, pull up a loop for 4. We should all have 2 chains left. What we're going to do is yarn over, pull through all 4, and instead of doing a chain 1 right after that, we're just going to start our decrease of 2 half double crochets right away. So yarn over. Into that second to last chain, we're going to insert and pull through. Then into that last chain, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4. And that is the end of our row 1. Now we need to connect it into the base. So making sure that we're working towards the point of our waistband, we're all going to insert our hook into that following stitch into the base. So insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then our following row is an even number row, and we don't do any increases or decreases along the even number rows. So to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect and flip our work. Now we're going to get started on our first trinity stitch. It is going to be done the same way that the first one was from the previous row. So just to do this together, finding that last stitch from our previous row, not those slip stitches into the base, so into the top of that decrease, start with one single crochet. Then to do our first trinity stitch, into that same stitch that our single crochet is into, pull up a loop, into that following stitch, pull up a loop, following stitch, pull up a loop because we want 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1 to complete. Then to do our second trinity stitch, into the last stitch that our previous trinity stitch is worked into, insert, pull through. Into that next stitch, pull up a loop, stitch right after that, pull up a loop for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1, then we're going to continue on with our trinity stitch until we reach the end of the row, and when we have just 2 stitches left, I'll meet you back to show you how we're going to do the last one. We are now at the end of our row 2. We should have all left the last 2 stitches. Now to close off a trinity stitch row where we are not doing any increases or decreases, we're going to get started on the last trinity stitch the same way as all of our other ones. So into that same stitch our previous trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, into that following stitch which should be our second to last, pull up a loop, into that following stitch which should be our last, pull up another loop. We should all have 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over and pull through all 4. And for the last one only, instead of closing off our trinity stitch with a chain, we're simply going to single crochet into that same last stitch that this trinity stitch is worked into. So just into the last stitch into the row, insert with a single crochet. And now our row 2 is complete. Now it's going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows until we reach our stitch marker. So just to get this started again, chain 1 and flip your work. The first trinity stitch is going to start with a single crochet, then we're going to pull up 4 loops. So into that same stitch our single crochet is in, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for 4 loops, yarn over, pull through 4, chain 1, then into that last stitch that our previous trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4, and chain 1 to complete. Continue with this trinity stitch until we all have 4 stitches left. So we are nearly at the end of our row 3. We should all have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left, and now to do our last one, since we're at the end of our odd number row, it's going to be a decrease. So into the last stitch that our previous trinity stitch is worked into, pull up a loop, next stitch, pull up a loop, next stitch, pull up a loop, should give us 4 loops on our hook, leaving us with 2 stitches left. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through all 4, and we're going to automatically work into our decrease of 2 half doubles, so yarn over. Into that second to last stitch, pull through, following stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4. Then we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we did, so just finding that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch that still doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and we're going to do our trinity stitch all the way down without any increases or decreases. So do your trinity stitch until we all have 2 stitches left. We are now at the end of our row 4. We should all have 2 stitches left, and just to close off this row, we're going to do our last one. So insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, last stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, then to complete this, single crochet into that same last stitch, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until our first middle stitch marker stitch is reached, and then I will meet you back to get started on the other side. So we are back. 1/2 of my front panel is completed. Now we're going to repeat pretty much the same thing that we did here on this side, but instead of decreases, they're going to be increases. So the following row may be different for everyone. If you guys ended along the top like me, we're going to do our normal trinity stitch row, and then I'll meet you back when we have 2 stitches left so we can do our increase. But if you guys ended along the base, you guys are going to be slip stitching into that following stitch marker stitch and working your way up, so working that even number row the same way that we normally would. Then you guys would work the following odd number row, so do your trinity stitches all the way down, and then I will meet everyone back when we have 2 stitches left right before the base. We've made our way down with our following odd number row. We should all have just 2 stitches left, and now we're going to do our last trinity stitch plus our increase. So how that's going to work, our last trinity stitch is going to be worked the same way that our previous one has been worked so far. So into the last stitch from our previous row, pull through, second to last stitch, pull through, last stitch, pull through. When we have these 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 4. Then to close off this trinity stitch with our increase, we're just going to be doing 3 half double crochets into that last stitch. So yarn over, into that last stitch with 1 half double, last stitch with our second half double, and same last stitch with a third half double. Then connect it into the base per usual. So just into that following stitch into the base, insert, and that's it. From here, it's going to be a repeat of this odd number row that we just did together. Then for every even number row, we still aren't going to be doing any increases or decreases. So just slip stitch into that following stitch into the base and then do our trinity stitch all the way down. Continue to repeat those 2 rows until we reach our following front panel stitch marker stitch. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We've made our way all the way across to our next stitch marker stitch. Now from here we did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're going to do the back panel, which is going to be done pretty much the same as the front panel, but without any increases or decreases. But just as one really quick tip, for some of us, depending on where we ended at when we're in the middle, the last row that we may have 2 additional stitches than chains that we made when we got started on our piece. Mine did. So as an example, I made a total chain of 41 when we got started on the height, and my last row ended with 43 stitches. That's completely normal if it's a little bit off. That's mainly due to where we started off our second half of the middle portion of this piece. But if it does end on 2 additional stitches, just close off the row with 1 single crochet into that last stitch and not with an increase, just so we can start and end with the same amount of stitches. Then when it comes to doing the back panel, that's going to be fairly simple. All we're going to do is make sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up. Insert our hook into our right back panel stitch marker stitch, then start by making the same chain that we made as the front panel, so for me 41. Then just do our trinity stitches with absolutely no increases and no decreases, working our way all the way across. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed working our way all the way across for our back panel. As you guys can see, I did do a single crochet row across the top of the back. We are going to need to do that for both the front and the back panel, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that for the front panel. So we're going to make sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to be inserting our same 6mm hook into the top right corner, and then we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row. So we're going to bring our hook through and do a chain up of 1 just to secure. And finding our first side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet. Then find that following side row, this is mine right here, find that top loop and insert with another single crochet. And that's it. We're going to continue with 1 single crochet into every side row, working our way all the way across. As a really quick tip, we should end up with the same amount of stitches as rows that we made for the front panel, and we're going to cut and repeat on the back panel as well. I'll meet you back when we have both single crochet rows completed. So now that our single crochet row is completed, along the top of the front and back panel, what we're going to do is flip our work wrong side out so we can seam up our sides. So first things first, we're going to try on our piece, making sure that this waistband is right underneath our underbust. Then we're all going to start by inserting a stitch marker into any stitch from the top that fits right where our underarm is. Now the lower that you insert your stitch marker, the wider your sleeve will be, or the higher, the slimmer your sleeve is going to be. So I've inserted my stitch marker into the 10th stitch from the top. That's roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters. Now we're going to get started on our seam. Then we're going to be inserting our same 6mm hook into the first stitch into the front and first stitch into the back panel. Then we're going to do a single crochet seam. So we're going to pull our yarn through and do a chain 1. That chain 1 is just as secure. Then we're going to find that first stitch into the front panel, insert, find that first stitch into the back panel, and insert. Then we're going to single crochet. So yarn over, pull through the first 2, then yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do the next one. Insert your hook into that next stitch into the front panel, into the next stitch into the back panel, and single crochet, and that's it. Then we're going to continue this until we reach our stitch marker, then do a chain up of 1 cut, and repeat on the other side. So now that our seam is complete, we're now going to get started on the shoulder band. So what we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, meaning all of the seams that we just did are along the inside. And then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of the back panel along the right side with our 5mm hook. Then we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook and pull through. And we're all going to start by making a chain the height that we'd like for our top band to be. Now I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 6. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do our slip stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. Into that chain, we're going to yarn over and gently pull through everything on our hook. We want to make sure that we're still not tugging too tightly, otherwise the flying row will still be too tight to work into. So into that following chain, insert, yarn over, pull through everything. Continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now that we put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we're now going to connect it into the base. Now connecting it into the base is going to be done exactly the same way that we connected the body portion into the waistband. So just to do the first one, start by finding that next available stitch into the base and insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch still doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch, flip our work. And now put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So into that first stitch from our previous row, not those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, pull through everything, and that's it. When we reach the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And all we're going to do is continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Then I'll meet you back to show you how we're going to work on our shoulder band. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way across with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more left to work into, so now what we're going to do is continue on with back loop slip stitch rows, but not connecting it into anything. And we're just going to continue on until we have a portion that can wrap around our arm and reach the front corner stitch. So all we're going to do, no matter if we end it along the top or the bottom, chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, chain 1, and repeat. I'll meet you guys back once we have a total amount of odd numbers, so our hook should end along the bottom so that we can work straight into the front panel corner stitch from there. I'll meet you back. Alright, so we are back. I have just completed my shoulder strap. I have a total of 31 rows for my shoulder strap. That's just about 5 inches or 13 centimeters unstretched, or I have a total of 71 rows. Now from here, we're simply going to slip stitch it into that corner stitch that we have into the front panel. That's going to count as the connection, and then we're going to work our way up to the following row. So this should be pretty simple. We're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to make sure that our strap isn't twisted. Then simply insert your hook into the top corner stitch into the front panel, and we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. That is going to be how we connect this row. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. All we're going to do is continue to do our back loop slip stitch rows, working our way across the front with no increases and no decreases. Then once we reach this corner on this side, we are then going to make the same amount of back loop slip stitch rows that's not connected for this side of our shoulder strap. And then I will meet you back so that we can seam it all together. But just as a really quick reminder, I did a total of 31 rows here. So then I will do a total of 31 detached rows, and then I'll meet you back so we can seam it. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way across the front panel and also did the same shoulder band that we did on this side. Now we're going to seam it all up together. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of the beginning of this shoulder band that we just started. So no matter if you guys are along bottom or the top, the seam is going to be the same. It is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam. So yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. Then start by finding that first stitch into the front panel and insert only into that front loop. First stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through all three. Let's do that again. Next stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into the back. Yarn over, pull through all three, and continue that until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now we can get started on our sleeve. So first things first, making sure the work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Insert our 6mm hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within our armhole. Then from here, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch until we reach our shoulder band, and then I'll meet you back. So we've made our way up our underarm portion, and now all we're going to do with our same 6mm hook is put 1 single crochet into every side row. So just to do that together, into our first side row, which is this one right here, find that top loop and insert with a single. Finding our next top loop, which is this raised row, find that top loop and insert with a single. Let's do this again. This is my next side row, which is this divot. I'm going to find that top loop, insert with a single, then finding my following side row, which is this raised row, find that top loop and insert with 1 single. Continue this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Then working our way back down our underarm, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, then slip stitch into that chain space, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. Our single crochet row along our armhole is complete. Now from here, it is just going to be our trinity stitches with no increases and no decreases, done exactly the same way as the back panel. So I'm just going to talk you guys through it really quickly. We're all going to start by making a chain that is an odd number, the length that we'd like for our sleeve to be. You can make this as short and as long as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be 3/4, so I'm going to start by making chain 35, which is roughly 7 inches or 18 centimeters. Do our trinity stitches all the way back, connecting it into the base the same way that we did for the back panel, then work your way back out, and that's it. No increases, no decreases. We're just going to continue doing that, making our way all the way up and around until we don't have any more stitches left to work into our armhole, and when we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our sleeve, and now we're going to seam it up together. As you guys can probably tell, I have already seamed mine up, but this seam is going to be done exactly the same way as our side seam. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to flip our work wrong side out, then just do our single crochet seam all the way down. Now we should all end right after the seam along the edge of our sleeve, so you don't have to do a chain up of 1 cut. We can work straight into the cuff together from there. So using our same 6mm hook, what we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into one side row and then do a decrease of 2 into the next. So into that first side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with a single crochet. Now into our following 2 side rows, this one and this one, I'm going to find the top loop and do a decrease. So into the top loop of that following side row, pull through, next side row, pull through 3, and we're going to continue that, making our way all the way around. Let's do that again. Into that next top loop, insert with just 1 single. Next top loop for the next 2 side rows, a decrease. So insert, pull through for 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 3, and we're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. We are back. We have just completed the single crochet row along the edge of our sleeve. From here, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the cuff to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10, and then we're going to do back loop slip stitch rows. So exactly the same way that we did the shoulder band, even connecting it into the base. So all we're going to do is make our chain, then just slip stitch all the way down. Connect it into the base the same way that we did for the shoulder band, then work your way back up with more back loop slip stitch rows. Continue on with our back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around, and then I'll meet you back to seam it all up together. So we are back. We made our way all the way around with our slip stitch cuffs. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it together. But as you guys can probably tell, I have already seamed mine together. So all we're going to do is the same outside loop slip stitch seam that we did for the shoulder band. So just to talk you through it, make sure that your work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then you're going to do your outside loop slip stitch seam so you don't have any more stitches left to work into. Then do a chain up 1 and cut. Then repeat everything we did here on the other side. And then once we have both of them completed, we are all done. Last thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all in the next one. Bye.